I received letters from the bank about properties I supposedly bought, but I've never purchased anything like that in my life. My daughter-in-law says it's just a bank error, but there are already 6 properties in my name worth over $2 million. So, I secretly hired a lawyer, and what she discovered left me absolutely terrified. Thank you for being here as I share the darkest chapter of my life. Please subscribe to the channel and drop a comment with where and when you're watching. Your support means everything to an old man who almost lost it all. My name is Edward Thompson, and at 72 years old, I thought I knew everything there was to know about my quiet life in Burlington, Vermont. I was wrong. It all started on a chilly Monday morning in late September, the kind of crisp autumn day that makes you grateful for small-town living. The September air carried the scent of fallen leaves when Tom Harris's mail truck pulled into my driveway earlier than usual. I was tending Elizabeth's lavender bushes, the ones she'd planted 40 years ago when we first bought this house on Maple Lane. "Morning, Edward," Tom called, waving a thick envelope. "Certified mail for you." My stomach tightened. In all my years, certified mail never brought good news. I signed for the envelope from Green Mountain Bank, where I'd banked for 35 years. Inside, using Elizabeth's antique letter opener, I found a document congratulating me on acquiring a retail property on Church Street, valued at $400,000. I read it 4 times. It made no sense. I had never bought any property on Church Street. The only real estate I owned was this house, paid off 12 years ago with Elizabeth's careful budgeting and my steady work at the lumber mill. I dialed the bank immediately. Navigating automated menus, a voice answered. "Green Mountain Bank, this is Sarah." "This is Edward Thompson," I said. "I received a letter about a property purchase, but there's been a mistake. I never bought any retail property." Typing sounds. "Let me transfer you to commercial loans." More hold music. "Commercial loans, this is Mark. I see you're calling about Church Street." "Mr. Thompson," he said, "our records show you signed documents on August 20th. I did no such thing. I haven't signed anything, nor been to your bank in August." "Sir, all documentation is in order. Perhaps you'd like to speak with your daughter-in-law. Emily Thompson works in our mortgage processing department. She could help clarify any confusion." I hung up before he finished. Emily, David's wife of 8 years, always helpful, perhaps too helpful. She'd encouraged me to update my banking after Elizabeth passed, helped set up online access, offered assistance with paperwork during my adjustment to widowhood. But I hadn't needed help. Elizabeth taught me to keep meticulous records, every document filed perfectly in the cedar cabinet she'd bought at a yard sale. I walked to that cabinet and pulled out the 2025 correspondence folder. If there were other mistakes, Elizabeth's system would catch them. There they were. 5 additional letters spanning 7 months, each from Green Mountain Bank. March, April, May, July, September, each congratulating me on property purchases I'd never made. I spread all 6 letters across Elizabeth's oak dining table, where we'd shared 45 years of meals. The numbers made my head spin. 6 properties, 6 signatures I had never made. Total value, $2.1 million. My hands trembled as I stared at the evidence of a crime I didn't yet understand. Tuesday afternoon brought unexpected company. I was reviewing insurance policies when Emily's SUV pulled into my driveway. She stepped out with a pink bakery box, perfectly styled despite the September breeze. "Edward," she called, letting herself in with her spare key. "I brought maple crepes from Loinig's," Elizabeth's voice echoed. People who bring gifts without occasions usually want something. That's thoughtful, I said, watching her eyes sweep the mail pile on my counter. What brings you by? Can I check on my favorite father-in-law? You've seemed scattered lately. Scattered. Interesting word choice. Have I? David mentioned you've been having confusion with the bank. She continued. Those error notices they've been sending. I hadn't mentioned any error notices to David. We'd talk Sunday about his work. Nothing more. Error notices. I tested her. Those silly mix-ups with property listings. The bank's computer system has issues. I see it constantly at work. Elderly clients getting paperwork for transactions they don't remember making. Elderly clients don't remember making. How do you know about my mail? Her smile faltered briefly. David said you'd called about confusion. The representative mentioned it in our department meeting. We flag these cases for follow-up. Flag these cases like I was a problem to manage. Edward, you've seemed forgetful lately. She pressed. Sunday. You asked twice about David's new project. When I mentioned organizing your medications, you seemed confused about which ones you take. I took the same 4 pills every morning at 6:30 sharp for 6 years. I'd never asked about organizing them. Never asked twice about any project. I'm not sure what you mean. She patted my hand. There's no shame needing help. We all get older. Things become overwhelming. Maybe it's time to consider simpler living arrangements. David and I discussed this. Senior communities in Montpelier have independent living with support services. You'd have your own apartment, but help available if needed. What about this house? We'd handle everything. The sale paperwork, moving, completely stress-free. She squeezed my hand. I've spoken with a real estate agent specializing in senior transitions. Senior transitions, as if I were already dead. I'm comfortable here. Her expression hardened slightly. Edward, I worry about you alone in this big house. What if you forgot the stove? She let implications hang. I manage fine. Of course. Her voice carried patronizing sweetness. But David and I think you should be evaluated just to establish a baseline for your protection. After she left, I sat in Elizabeth's reading chair, watching her SUV disappear down Maple Lane. The crepes sat untouched. I replayed our conversation. Emily had known about bank letters before I told her anything. She'd mentioned error notices, property listings, confused elderly clients while pretending to comfort me about supposed forgetfulness. She hadn't come to check on me. She'd come to check on what I knew. Wednesday morning found me driving toward Montpelier before dawn. I hadn't told anyone about this trip. Elizabeth's voice guided me. When something smells rotten, don't ignore your nose. Rebecca Mitchell and Associates occupied the 5th floor of a downtown brick building. I'd found her name under elder law in the directory. Rebecca Mitchell was a woman in her mid-50s with silver-streaked hair and intelligent eyes. She listened without interruption as I spread the 6 bank letters across her desk. Mr. Thompson, how long have you been receiving these? 7 months. The first came in March. She turned to her computer. Let's check 1820 Church Street. Her fingers flew across keys. That property exists. Purchased 5 months ago for $400,000. Deed shows your name as owner. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. Here's what's interesting. She clicked through screens. It was immediately leased to Northeast Realty Management. Rental income is being deposited into an account at Green Mountain Bank. An account I'm betting you can't access. How can that be? Someone with your personal information and banking relationships can accomplish quite a lot. She pulled up another screen. Pine Street property also real, also generating rental income you're not seeing. The room felt smaller. Someone's been buying real estate with my name and collecting rent. Exactly. Edward. This isn't random identity theft. This is sophisticated financial exploitation. Someone has systematically used your identity for months, purchasing income-generating properties and funneling profits elsewhere. She leaned back, studying me. The coordination required, the banking access, forged documents. This suggests professional operation. Anyone taking unusual interest in your personal information. Family members, financial advisors. Emily's face flashed in my mind. Her bank position, her concern about my mental state, her knowledge of letters before I'd mentioned them. My daughter-in-law works at Green Mountain Bank. Rebecca's expression sharpened. In what capacity? Mortgage processing department. She made a note. Edward, is there any possibility you signed these documents and don't remember? No. I may be 72, but my mind is clear. I've never signed anything related to these properties. Then we have a serious crime. She reached for her phone. I'm calling the FBI. This level of sophistication, the multi-property scheme, banking involvement. This isn't just identity theft. This is organized financial exploitation, possibly affecting multiple victims. The FBI. Someone created an entire false financial identity for you, purchased over $2 million in real estate, and established ongoing revenue streams. This is federal crime territory. She dialed from memory. Agent Carter, Rebecca Mitchell, I have a case you need to see immediately. After hanging up, she looked at me with admiration. Most people would have thrown those letters away. Assumed bank errors. Let family handle the confusion. You didn't. You came here. You're fighting back. My wife taught me to pay attention to details. Smart woman. Rebecca gathered the letters. Edward, these aren't bank errors. Someone has been systematically stealing your identity for months, and they're making money from it. Her next words hit like ice water. This level of sophistication suggests inside help. Someone at your bank is involved. Wednesday afternoon brought me home from Montpelier. With Rebecca's words echoing, someone at my bank was involved. I parked in my driveway and stared at my house. The same house where Emily had used the guest room as her occasional office, claiming it was quieter than their condo for remote work. Elizabeth's voice guided me. Evidence tells a story if you know how to read it. The guest room door stood slightly ajar. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating Emily's makeshift workspace. I'd always respected her privacy, never entering when she worked here. That courtesy ended today. Her laptop sat closed on the small desk, but beside it lay a burgundy portfolio I'd never noticed before. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents, dozens of them, property appraisals, mortgage applications, and there, over and over, my signature on papers I'd never seen. But these weren't copies. These looked like originals. I photographed each page with my phone, my hands shaking so badly. The first few shots came out blurred. I forced myself to breathe, to focus. Elizabeth had taught me to be methodical. Beneath the property documents, I found something that made my blood run cold. A blue legal pad filled with Emily's precise handwriting. The header read, E.T. Cognitive Decline Documentation. Edward Thompson. I read entry after entry, each dated, each describing incidents that had never happened. September 25th. Edward called bank 4 times about same property. Seemed confused each time. September 18th. Asked me 3 times in one conversation about David's work schedule. September 5th. Forgot he'd already taken his evening medication. Nearly took double dose. August 15th. Couldn't remember neighbor's name. Called her that woman next door. Every word was a lie. I remembered each date clearly. Normal days with normal conversations. She was building a fictional record of my mental decline, creating evidence that didn't exist. Below the legal pad, I found printed articles about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Several passages were highlighted. Early signs often dismissed as normal aging. Family members should document instances of confusion, legal measures to protect vulnerable seniors. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was stealing my mind, my credibility, my very identity as a competent human being. I photographed everything page by page, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I was replacing the portfolio when I heard the distinctive sound of Emily's SUV in the driveway. I flew downstairs, barely managing to grab my pruning shears and step outside before her key turned in the lock. By the time she rounded the corner of the house, I was kneeling beside Elizabeth's lavender bushes, pulling weeds with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "Edward," she called out, her voice bright with false cheer. "I didn't expect to find you gardening so late in the day." "Just tidying up," I managed, not trusting myself to look directly at her. "Are you feeling all right? You look a bit flushed." I forced myself to meet her eyes. The same eyes that had watched me with concern yesterday, that had spoken of my supposed forgetfulness with such convincing sympathy. Now I saw something different there. Calculation. Assessment. The careful observation of a predator watching its prey. "Just tired from the fresh air," I said. She studied my face for a long moment. "Well, don't overdo it. We wouldn't want you to have another one of your dizzy spells." I'd never had a dizzy spell in my life. Emily walked through that door with her perfect smile. But now I saw something different in her eyes. She knew I'd been in her files, and I knew she was building a case to destroy me. Thursday morning brought Rebecca's urgent call before I'd finished tea. "Edward, Agent Carter can see you this morning. She's very interested in your case." I drove to Montpelier again, Elizabeth's words echoing. Sometimes you have to trust strangers more than family. Agent Laura Carter met us at the FBI field office, a woman in her early 40s with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen too much human greed. "Mr. Thompson," she said, studying photographs from Emily's portfolio. "These fabricated diary entries suggest something beyond simple fraud. Someone is systematically building a case for your mental incompetence." "That terrifies me most," I admitted. "Not just the money, but making people believe I'm losing my mind." Agent Carter spread the images across the table. "The sophistication here is remarkable. Forged signatures, detailed psychological manipulation, coordinated timing across multiple properties. This isn't amateur work." She turned to her computer. "Emily Carter Thompson. Let me run that through our database." Her expression changed as information appeared. "She has a brother, Nathan Carter, Colorado resident with a record, wire fraud, identity theft, served 20 months 4 years ago. He's been flagged in similar schemes in Utah and Idaho, but prosecutors couldn't make charges stick." My stomach dropped. Similar schemes, always the same pattern. Elderly victims, forged documents, property purchases, claims of mental incompetence when victims complain. Based on cases, we've tracked potentially 30 victims across multiple states. The room felt colder. "What you've uncovered isn't just identity theft. This is a coordinated criminal enterprise targeting elderly victims across state lines. Federal jurisdiction, our priority. She pulled out a folder. We've been tracking these patterns for 18 months. The sophistication suggests family operations, siblings working together. One gets inside access at financial institutions. The other handles technical aspects. Emily works at the bank. Exactly. Inside access explains how they've operated undetected. Bank employees access personal information, credit history, signature cards. They manipulate internal systems, delay investigations, flag complaints as customer confusion. She closed the folder. Edward, we need your help. These criminals are still active, still victimizing people. We can arrest them based on your discoveries, but we need more evidence to dismantle the entire operation. What kind of evidence? Recorded confessions, details about methods, other victims, financial arrangements, information people only share when they think they're safe. Rebecca spoke up. You're asking Edward to confront his family while wearing a wire. I'm asking Edward to help stop criminals destroying elderly people's lives across multiple states, but only if he's willing. I thought about the fake diary entries, systematic identity theft, other victims Agent Carter mentioned. What do you need me to do? Agent Carter reached into her briefcase and pulled out a device smaller than a button. Sunday dinner with your family just became a federal investigation. Are you ready to wear a wire? Friday evening found me alone preparing Elizabeth's pot roast for tomorrow's dinner, my hands trembling as I chopped carrots and potatoes. I remembered happier Sunday dinners when David was small, when our biggest worry was the Patriots' football game before everything changed. The phone rang as I seasoned the roast. Rebecca's voice was careful. Edward, are you ready for tomorrow? As ready as a man can be to discover if his son chose money over his father. Remember what we discussed. Let them talk. Let them feel comfortable. Truth reveals itself when people think they're safe. After hanging up, I practiced conversations before the bathroom mirror. Emily, I know about the properties. Too direct. I've been having banking concerns. Too weak. How do you confront someone systematically destroying your life while pretending to care? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Old men who ask too many questions get hurt. Stop digging or face consequences. Ice flooded my veins. They knew someone was watching, worried enough to threaten me directly. I forwarded the message to Agent Carter and Rebecca. The house felt different tonight, like a stage being set for tomorrow's performance. Every familiar object seemed to watch with expectant eyes. I walked upstairs to our old bedroom, barely entered since Elizabeth passed. Her perfume bottles still sat on the dresser, reading glasses folded beside the lamp. I picked up our wedding photo. Two young people who believed love conquered everything. Elizabeth, I whispered to her smiling face. Tomorrow I find out if our son chose money over his father. I find out if the boy we raised still exists or if she's taken him too. The silence stretched heavy with 45 years of memories. Elizabeth had always been the strong one, making hard decisions when I wavered. What would she do tomorrow? What would she say to Emily? To David? To the people who'd invaded our home, I knew the answer. Elizabeth would fight. She'd fight for truth, for dignity, for other victims who had no one to stand up for them. She wouldn't let fear silence her. I won't let you down. I promised her photograph. Whatever happens tomorrow, I won't let them win. Sleep eluded me. I lay in the guest room where Emily had worked. where she'd planned my destruction with casual efficiency. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every passing car might be someone watching. At dawn, I rose and made coffee with hands that had finally stopped shaking. Today would bring answers, consequences, possibly the end of my family as I'd known it. But it would also bring justice for Elizabeth's memory, and for elderly victims who'd been told they were confused, paranoid, losing their minds. Saturday morning arrived with the sound of car doors slamming. David and Emily were early, and they'd brought someone with them. The mystery guest turned out to be Dr. Margaret Ellis, a woman in her late 50s carrying a leather briefcase and the assessing eyes of someone trained to spot cognitive decline. Emily made the introductions with practiced smoothness. Dad, this is Dr. Ellis, a geriatric specialist. We thought it might be helpful for you to have a baseline evaluation just for your own peace of mind. David stood beside his wife, looking uncomfortable, but nodding in agreement. Mom always said prevention was better than cure. Right. Dad. I felt the small recording device Agent Carter had given me, no bigger than a shirt button, taped beneath my collar. Of course. Please, everyone sit down. Dinner's almost ready. As we gathered around Elizabeth's dining room table, the same table where we'd shared countless happy meals, Dr. Ellis opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. Edward, I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to ask you a few simple questions. Nothing invasive, just to establish how you're managing day-to-day activities. Fire away, I said, serving Elizabeth's pot roast with steady hands. What year is it? 2025. What day is it? Sunday, September 28th. Your full name, age and address. Edward Thompson, 72 years old, living at 1820 Maple Lane in Burlington, Vermont. I looked directly at her. Was that what you were going to ask? Emily's smile tightened slightly. Dad, there's no need to be defensive. I'm not being defensive. I'm being evaluated against my will in my own home. I turned to Dr. Ellis. Did anyone inform you that I haven't consented to this evaluation? That I have no cognitive complaints and I'm here under what amounts to duress? Dr. Ellis looked uncomfortable. David said you'd agreed to this. David lied. I set down my fork and looked at my son. Just like he lied about me calling the bank confused. Just like Emily lied about bank errors. The room went deadly silent. Emily, I continued, my voice steady. Why don't you tell Dr. Ellis about the 6 properties that have been purchased in my name over the past 7 months? Properties I never bought with signatures I never made. Emily's face remained perfectly composed, but I saw her hand tighten on her wineglass. Dad, those were bank errors. I told you I'd handle it. Bank errors? All 6 of them. And the rental income from those properties. Where's that money going? Edward, what are you talking about? David asked. Looking genuinely confused, I stood and walked to the china cabinet where I'd hidden copies of Emily's portfolio. I placed them on the table. This is evidence I found in your wife's files. Forged mortgage documents with my signature on papers I've never seen. And this. I pulled out the blue legal pad. Is Emily's handwritten diary of false memory episodes she's attributed to me, building a case for my incompetence. David stared at the documents, his face draining of color. Emily stood slowly. You went through my private files. You had no right. They were in my home. Everything in this house belongs to me, including evidence of crimes committed against me. Edward, Doctor, Ellis said carefully, these are serious accusations. They are. And I have more. I looked directly at Emily. I also know about Victor Lang's offshore accounts. The wine glass slipped from Emily's hand, shattering on Elizabeth's hardwood floor. Her face went white as paper. How did you? She started, then caught herself. Victor promised this was foolproof, didn't he? Emily. She began to shake. You don't understand. You're confused. Victor Lang is your inside man at Green Mountain Bank. He's been receiving payments for 8 years to cover up your fraud schemes. $420,000 to be exact. David was staring at his wife with an expression I'd never seen before, horror mixed with dawning understanding. Emily, he whispered, is this true? She turned on him with sudden fury. You stupid fool. Did you think we could afford that lake house on your engineering salary? Did you think your father's little pension was going to take care of everyone? So, you decided to steal it, I said quietly. Victor got his cut. She screamed, all pretense finally shattered. $420,000 over 8 years. He protected us from inside the bank. He flagged complaints as customer confusion. He approved the loans. Without Victor covering for us, we never could have. The front door burst open. Agent Carter entered with 4 other federal agents, weapons drawn. Emily Carter Thompson, Agent Carter announced. You're under arrest for bank fraud, identity theft, elder financial exploitation, and conspiracy. Emily's face twisted into something ugly as they approached with handcuffs. You stupid old man. Victor Lang made this possible. The whole system was ours. We had judges, bank executives, real estate agents. You've destroyed everything. As they handcuffed her, she lunged toward me. This house should have been ours. You don't deserve it. You're nothing but a useless old... David caught her, holding her back as she screamed obscenities. That made Dr. Ellis gasp. Agent Carter spoke into her radio. Send the team to Green Mountain Bank. We have probable cause for Victor Lang. Sunday morning brought news vans lined up on Maple Lane, and my phone ringing every 30 seconds. The headline on every major network was the same. Green Mountain Bank executive arrested in elder fraud scheme. I stood at Elizabeth's kitchen window watching reporters set up cameras on my front lawn and remembered her favorite saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Rebecca arrived before 8, carrying newspapers and wearing the satisfied expression of a lawyer who just won a major case. Edward, your front page news. Lang was arrested at his office this morning trying to shred documents. The FBI found evidence of 22 victims across 4 states. 22 people. 22 elderly victims who'd been told they were confused, paranoid, declining. My stomach churned, thinking about the others who might never have fought back. By noon, Green Mountain Bank stock had plummeted 35%. CEO Patricia Owens called an emergency press conference with me standing beside her as the media cameras rolled. Green Mountain Bank failed these victims, Owens said, her voice steady despite the chaos. We will make this right and ensure it never happens again. The questions came fast and sharp. How long had this been happening? How many employees were involved? What safeguards had failed? I found myself speaking into microphones, telling the story of those first mysterious letters, of Emily's manipulation, of the fake diary entries designed to make me question my own sanity. Elder fraud isn't just about money, I told the assembled reporters. It's about stealing dignity, independence, and peace of mind. When someone tells an elderly person they're confused or forgetful, we're trained to believe them. We're taught to be polite, to defer to authority. That makes us perfect victims. The phone calls started immediately. Elderly people from across Vermont, then across the country, sharing their own stories. Bank errors that weren't errors. Family members suggesting assisted living. Sudden concerns about mental capacity. Within a week, 15 more victims had come forward with evidence of Lang's involvement. The FBI expanded their investigation to include 5 other states where similar patterns had emerged. Patricia Owens visited my home personally with the settlement offer: $15 million in a victim compensation fund, full restitution for all documented losses, a public apology and acknowledgement of the bank's failures in oversight. "Mr. Thompson," she said, sitting in Elizabeth's living room, "I want you to know that Victor Lang has been terminated, and we're cooperating fully with federal prosecutors. We're also implementing new safeguards to prevent this from ever happening again." What about the other victims? The ones who might not have the resources to fight back? Every case Lang touched is being reviewed. We're reaching out to potential victims proactively, offering free legal assistance and full restitution regardless of whether they pursue criminal charges. The media attention continued for weeks. I gave interviews to local news stations, national networks, even a documentary crew interested in elder fraud prevention. My story became a cautionary tale, a success story, a rallying cry for elderly rights. But as I watched the coverage from Elizabeth's old chair, I realized this victory came with a price I hadn't fully considered. I'd saved my home and dignity, but lost my family in the process. David had called once since Sunday dinner, his voice hollow with shame. "Dad, I don't know how to face you. I don't know how to make this right." Emily was in federal custody, awaiting trial. Lang had been denied bail after attempting to flee the country. Nathan Carter was arrested in Colorado, the same day caught trying to liquidate shell company assets. The house felt too quiet now, too empty. Elizabeth's photos seemed to watch me with sad eyes, understanding the cost of justice. I'd fought for truth and won, but victory tasted bitter when it meant losing the son I'd raised, the family dinners I'd treasured, the simple belief that blood meant loyalty. 4 months later, David knocked on my door alone, holding white tulips, Elizabeth's favorite flowers for visiting her grave. Spring was showing itself in Burlington. Elizabeth's crocuses pushed through soil she'd tended so carefully. Signs of renewal, life continuing despite winter's harsh grip. "Dad," David said, his voice barely a whisper, "I brought flowers for Mom. I hoped maybe we could visit her together." I studied my son's face. He looked older, worn down by months of shame. The confident engineer who'd stood beside Emily was gone, replaced by a man who'd learned life's hardest lesson. "Come in." We sat in Elizabeth's living room, where she'd taught David to tie shoes, where we'd celebrated his graduation, where I'd told him about her cancer. Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. "Dad, I don't know how to begin apologizing." "Start with the truth. Help me understand how my son could believe I was losing my mind." David's hand shook. "It was so gradual. Emily would mention little things, how you'd repeated yourself, seemed confused about dates. She'd show me articles about dementia signs, suggest we watch for symptoms, and you believed her. She was so convincing. She'd say, 'I'm worried about your father,' with such genuine concern. When you called the bank, she told me you'd been calling repeatedly, getting agitated. She made it sound like you were becoming paranoid. I remembered Elizabeth's wisdom about manipulation, how dangerous lies were wrapped in love and concern. She isolated me from you, David continued, tears streaming. Every conversation, she was there, interpreting your words, explaining your behavior. I stopped trusting my own judgment about my own father. David, Emily is a professional. This is what she does. She's perfected these techniques on elderly victims across multiple states. You're not the first son she's turned against his father. But I should have known better. Son, I've decided to use the settlement money for an education program. Help families recognize elder exploitation signs. Teach how these criminals operate. David wiped his eyes. That's exactly what Mom would have done. Your mother said our experiences should teach others. Maybe this nightmare can prevent other families being destroyed. Dad, how do I earn back your trust? I looked at this man I'd raised, who'd made a terrible mistake but had courage to face it. You start by being here, by showing up, by rebuilding our relationship one conversation at a time. Can we start having Sunday dinners again? Just us? I'd like that, but no more secrets. David, no more secrets, he promised. That afternoon, we drove to Lakeview Cemetery, where Elizabeth rested beneath her chosen maple tree. David placed tulips on her headstone, while I told her everything: the fraud, the investigation, the coming trial, and most importantly, that her son had come home. Standing in spring sunshine, I realized something profound. I'd spent months proving I wasn't losing my mind, wasn't becoming weak. But the real victory wasn't in courtrooms or bank settlements. The real victory was standing here with my son, both older and wiser, ready to rebuild what had been broken. We drove home in comfortable silence, planning our first Sunday dinner in months. No evaluations, no hidden agendas, no one questioning my mental capacity. Just father and son sharing a meal Elizabeth would have loved. That evening, I called Rebecca to discuss the education fund details. Other families needed to know the warning signs, needed to understand that elder fraud wasn't just about money. It was about stealing dignity and independence, peace of mind. As I prepared for bed in the house I'd fought to keep, I looked at Elizabeth's photograph on my nightstand. We did it, I whispered. We saved our home, our dignity, and our son. Age isn't about becoming weak or forgotten. It's about becoming wise enough to fight back when someone tries to make you invisible. Looking back at this true story, I realize how close I came to losing everything: my home, savings, and identity. If I hadn't trusted my instincts when everyone said I was confused, Emily's criminal network would have succeeded. My advice: don't be like I almost was. Don't let politeness become weakness. When something feels wrong, it probably is, regardless of who's telling you otherwise. God gave us instincts for a reason, and we must listen, even when family suggests we're declining. The hardest lesson from this true story: elder fraud isn't just about money. It's about stealing dignity, independence, and peace of mind. These criminals weaponize our good manners against us. For other grandpa stories like mine, remember that age brings wisdom, not weakness. God blessed us with decades of experience. That's our greatest defense against exploitation. Trust yourself first. Always. This experience taught me that sometimes closest family become greatest threats. But courage doesn't diminish with age. It grows stronger. God's protection came through my determination to seek truth, even when confronting painful family realities. Grandpa's stories often focus on the past, but mine is about fighting for the future. Don't let anyone convince you that confusion is normal just because you're older. Your mind is sharp, your instincts valid, your voice matters. Most important lesson when facing true story situations like mine: document everything. Trust professional help over family pressure, and remember that wisdom and determination triumph over manipulation with divine guidance. Fellow survivors know our greatest victory isn't just protecting assets. It's proving that experience can overcome greed and deception. Now I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you know faced elder fraud attempts? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of courage and justice. Together, we can protect our community's most vulnerable members.